What is up, everybody? See, wow, y'all already in here. See, everybody's in here already. That's good to see. MJ, Adrian, Nate, Jonathan, what's up? What's up? Sorry, I didn't get a chance to say what's up in the chat to everybody, so I'm gonna say it verbally because there's a lot of chat going on. But y'all keep it going and share this on your platform, Facebook, Twitter, whatever you got. And we want to.
They getting busy.
Yeah.
They getting busy talking.
Clearly, my guest needs no introduction. Hold on, let's make sure I'm muted. All right. But I'm gonna give him one anyway because he deserves that. All right, what's up, Rick? What's up, Jay Evans? Yes, please consider. I'm in full swing trying to. It's officially a nonprofit. It's called actually Proof for the Truth Ministries. So that's my apologetic ministry. If you have the means and if you find it in your heart, we would definitely appreciate that. So we can grow and continue to do what we've been led to do. All right. So with that being said, I want to jump right in because there's a lot I want to ask of this gentleman, my brother in Christ. Dr. Mason is the founder and pastor of Epiphany Fellowship in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. He and his wife, Yvette, have 3 sons and 1 living daughter. After more than 2 decades of gospel ministry, Dr. Mason has become known for his passion to see the glory of Jesus Christ robustly and relevantly engaged in broken cities with the comprehensive gospel. He helps coach and train families to plant churches locally, nationally, and internationally. He is the founder and president of Thriving, an urban resource organization committed to developing leaders for ministry in the urban context, and is the author of multiple books, including Manhood Restored, Beat God to the Punch, Unleashed, Woke Church, and of course, most recently, Urban Apologetics, Restoring Black Dignity with the Gospel. He's the recipient of multiple earned degrees, including a BS in psychology from Bowie State, Master of Theology from Dallas Theological Seminary, and a doctorate degree from Gordon Conwell Theological Seminary. Welcome.
Thanks for having me, man. It's good to be on here, my brother.
And man, it's good to see you.
I'm trying to figure out how to get down to the Windy City again.
Hey,
I used to prior to the pandemic, I used to get to Chicago at least once or twice a year. So I got to figure that out.
Well, I'm still trying to get my conference back on. I'll let you know when I do.
Yeah, I know you will, brother. Well, actually, I'll be in Chicago. I'll be in Chicago in September. So
okay.
Yeah. I'll be in Chicago in September. So
hit me up.
Maybe we connect. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So and so that was the last time I saw you in person was when I brought you in to speak at my conference, the Proof for the Truth conference, and that was 2019 because last year, like a missing year. But that was great, and actually the interview you and I did with you on the stage, I haven't posted it. I should post that next week for everybody to see. But that was a really good dialogue, and I think actually at that time you had just dropped Woke Church, maybe a few months prior to that.
It was around that time.
Yeah. And actually, the one of the ways, not the original way, but one of the main ways I first really got into following you, I think I told you, because I brought a bunch of guys out, or a bunch of guys came together out to Philly to the Manhood Restored conference.
Oh, the Manhood Restored. Okay, I thought you were about to say the Frequency conference.
No, I'm with a group of guys for accountability, and we meet and we go through books and a chapter of a book each month. And we had picked Manhood Restored, and we finished it, and it happened to coincide with the Manhood Restored conference coming up.
Yeah.
And we're like, hey, let's take a trip. So it was good. It was great, actually. So, yeah, thank you for being here. I wanted to just jump right in.
Yeah, man. I'm here, man. I'm here.
So congrats on the new book, first and foremost. I text you, but I know I haven't said it verbally yet. And I know you've been speaking a lot about it, but just for my audience, there may be some crossover, but just to have a frame of reference for those who may not know, can you just elaborate kind of briefly on why you put this project together?
Yeah, man. So first off, thanks for having me.
Yep.
Excited about all you do and all you're working on to do. I catch some of the videos when they pop up in my feed, I believe, but I'm about to go on here right now. Make sure I'm subscribed. Make sure y'all do the same. Subscribe and like the brother's video.
Absolutely. Actually, real quick, make sure y'all subscribe and hit the like. And let me just clarify my vision here. Our goal is to help people become confirmed, confident. People enter into a confirmed, confident, and eternal relationship with the source of all life and purpose. So I forgot to put it out there. Go ahead.
That's what's up. No problem. Do your thing, brother. So the book is really out of a 35-year journey with the Lord and in culture. So for me, I grew up in the crack era, post heroin and crack era. So kind of, the heroin of the 70s, PCP, it's crazy that we're calling an era by drugs, right? But that's what it's known for. And so I ended up growing up in the church kind of, but I wasn't a believer. So when I went to the school, I went to HBCU, and I was blown away by a lot of different things. But everywhere there were oils being sold, there were books being sold, Meta, Yale Old Africa, African Holistic Health, Gerald Macy, 13 Crucified Saviors, Destruction of a Civilization, Babylon to Timbuktu, all of those different resources that have made a major resurgence at this time. And man, I was in crisis and a lack of clarity. Some of the dudes I hung with were in the Nation of Islam. One of the guys that I almost got a fight with was 5%ers. And 5%ers back then were like Hebrew Israelite camps are now. They will fight you. If you said something about Allah, you said something about their 5% lessons, they would jump you. Like they were some wild boys. And so I ended up trusting Christ, and as I trust Christ, all of the hip hop stuff was out then. So you had Leaders of the New School, X-Clan, Public Enemy, and they were promoting Nation of Islam stuff, and there was a lot of hate through it. So that was that era. You had before that the 70s and the 60s, and before that you kind of had the 20s. And so now we have where all of these different bricks or Black religious identity cults now have basically found their way in to just having a lot of influence. You got Sonetta TV. You have the Hebrew Israelite street camps on the street. You have non-camp people who are teaching online. You have Yoruba spirituality. You have Black atheism. You have a lot of it's an onslaught. And so the book comes out of people wanting answers for years. You had people like Carl Ellis, Dr. Tony Evans, Dr. Walter McCrae. What's the other? Carl Ellis. You had a lot of people. Heyman Cross, different ones that wrote resources on this stuff. Dwight McKissick, shout out to him. And so, but and you had Ursary and Craig Keener write a book as well.
My favorite one,
Defending Black Faith, and so you had all those books, but I couldn't find any. I was getting so many questions for the last 7 years. I've gotten hundreds, maybe a few thousand messages from people asking me individual questions about each one of these different groups. And the number one question I got is, where can I go to get a handle on this? And I was like, I don't know. I would always post, if you followed me for any time, I would always post like 20 different books online. Yeah. But even in those books didn't fully deal with the matter because they were on a lot of good things, but it had some issues in it. So urban apologetics came out of a need to inform current Christians who want to defend the faith, people who are on the fence about the faith, people who are against the faith, and Christians who don't understand the apologetics and missiological issues that we deal with in the Black community.
Amen. and we'll get into that missiological aspect, because I think that sometimes I know that is missed by some of the detractors, we'll say. That's the word we'll use. So look,
yeah,
I want to allow you, out of your own mouth, I'm actually going to put this on the screen, and for those that have been following me, maybe a month ago, I guess at this point, no, maybe earlier this month, I can't remember. Well, same day the UA book dropped, actually, or I mean, it's a couple weeks after that, we did a examination of Voddie book that mysteriously dropped on the same day. And I used some quotes from your prior book, Woke Church, to explain what we mean. When I say we, I mean those who are Orthodox Black Christians who are theologically sound, yet understand the nuance of terminology, what we mean when we say woke. And actually, I remember even when I was bringing you into the conference, I was getting messages, people telling me not to, basically to disinvite you, because I was somehow a bad apologist for that. And these people read the cover but never read the book.
Right.
So what I'm going to do, so everybody can see word for word, and it's direct quotes from the book of what this gentleman, Dr. Mason, meant, and what we mean when we say woke, and then you can further explain what you mean when you say that we've redeemed that term. We don't have to just turn things over to the world. But anyway, here we go. Pull up this. All right, so that's the book, and here's what you said, what you wrote rather. It says in Ephesians 5:13-14, Paul says, everything exposed by light is made visible, for what makes everything visible is light. Therefore it is said, get up, sleeper, and rise from the dead, and Christ will shine on you. When Paul talks about everything being exposed by the light, this doesn't merely mean to see something that was hidden. It is deeper than that. The word for expose means rebuke, expose, refute, show one's fault, implying that there is a convincing of that fault. What Paul is saying is that the gospel strengthens us, the church, that's my insertion, through the Spirit, to see things in our society that others do not. We are called as the people of God to wake up, to see what others don't and call it out. The church in America is not awake to the reality of what is happening in communities across this nation, and we're missing out on our calling to shine the light into these places of darkness for Christ's glory. You said Pan-Africanists and Black nationalists use the term woke to refer to no longer being naive nor in mental slavery. We've borrowed the term and redeemed it to be used in the context of being awakened from deadened sinful thinking. In fact, every believer has been awakened from sin's effects and Satan's deception. Thus, the believer is able to be aware of sin and challenge it wherever it is. My initial thought to anybody is, where's the lie? Where's the lie? What's the problem?
Yeah.
so you wrote it. Tell me if you can elaborate. Just when you say redeeming this word, this term, what do you mean, and how does that happen?
Yeah, and so for me, I'm a missiologist by trade. I got a doctorate in missiology. So we were trained to contextualize terminology in a culture in order to, if there's ability based on Colossians 4:2-6, to develop common ground with non-Christian people. And so we got it used to be called conscious. That's why the conscious community is still called the conscious community, because it's a cousin term of woke, which they got from W.E.B. Du Bois, right? Who was a Christian, who was discipled by Alexander Crummell. So I've said this in tons of interviews. So it's interesting. If you can give me the ability to share the screen, can I share the screen? Just share it.
I think you can.
All right, let me share the screen because I want to show something. I've never shown this. I usually do this in a share screen. All right. So I want to window. Let me see, tab and Chrome. No, Windows. Where is it at? Where is it? There it is. All right. So if you look here and you look at this, Jerome Gay fleshed this out for us. And so can y'all see that?
Yep, I put it up there now. Yeah,
and so woke church meaning. So we go to Matthew 23:23, and one of the things that we talk about is, Jesus said, you tie deal mint and cumin, but you've neglected the weighty matters of the law, love, faithfulness, justice, and mercy. And then we talk about the whole Ephesians 5:14. Now, when we talk about woke, it has 5 areas. Now, Jerome developed this for us and fleshed this out. He said, he said, first off, it's spiritual. That's what we already talked about. Yep. It's personal. It affects how you relate to people. It's relational. It enters into relationships with others in order to engage them. It's social. It has a sociological aspect, which you see these passages on justice, and it's eschatological because we'll ultimately be fully awakened when we put off immortality and put on immortality. So again, us borrowing the term woke is really no different than Tertullian borrowing a term out of paganism to use it for the word Trinity. And so when we look at that, it's disingenuous. If they say to me, if a person says to me, hey, I think woke as a word is a junk drawer that actually doesn't help contextualize, it brings confusion. I can deal with that. But when I can understand why somebody would say that, right? My problem is when you demonize people and lump them into whatever category of woke you want to, and you know it's not true. Like they know I'm not preaching another gospel. So, but whenever you want to rile up a certain constituency, you know, yep. It is what it is. So, yep.
Throw them buzzwords out, man. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Which we'll get into that. A lot of these buzzwords, I had to go look up what I was even being accused of, you know, like
yeah.
So I'm glad, and I hope people, if you're gonna take an honest, just thoughtful look at what's being said and just understand that we're not trying to alter or change or preach another gospel. It's simply you got to read the material. We did the work. We read Voddie's whole book because we wanted to be honest. So I think the least that people can do is just read what you put all your hard work and energy into, and just if after you read it and you got a problem, okay, well that's something different. But I doubt that you will. So let me say this next part. I got to kind of preface this question. So there's some struggles that I've seen and experienced over the last 15 years in inner city ministry, primarily youth ministry, as has we all have if we do any kind of ministry at all, but definitely inner city ministry. Mm-hmm. And so I think some well-meaning Christian brothers and sisters simply aren't aware of some of those difficulties or some of those contexts in general, because they don't enter into that context, right? Mm-hmm. You can't quarterback from the sideline. So it's not always the case, but it's far too often the case that societal conditions and familial conditions might cloud or overshadow the solution, which is only found in the gospel. I'll give one example. I did, like I said, doing youth ministry in the city. I know one primary issue is fatherlessness. It's not the only issue, and sometimes people make a bigger deal than it is, but it is an issue. But I remember I was hosting.
That's actually, that's actually changed based on studies. Yeah. So I'm sorry, but people keep promoting that, but it's not really true.
Right.
But a lot of black men are fatherless. More men are aware of black men are aware of the fatherlessness, and I see more black fathers than I've ever seen. But anyway, I'm sorry.
Yeah. And that's why I say some people over exaggerate it because that's the only narrative they know. And so, but yeah, you're right. And so, but I remember one thing. I was emceeing a panel at the men's ministry or something like that, and I was watching grown men come to the mic in tears, and I had never thought about, because I didn't really deal in that context as much, about the pain of what they felt, never having a place to let out, like the ways they may have felt like they failed as a father. Not that was what we were even trying to talk about or make them feel like, or even about stuff that they never dealt with as far as that. And I only said it because one of my friends who's a pastor, he was on the panel. And he said it took him a while to really be able to feel comfortable calling God Father because of his past. And I'm like, that's a nuance that you won't know unless you know. And as you said, this is not I'm not painting the broad brush. I'm just saying this. When you enter into people's context, you don't really know what you don't know. Right. And so I address atheism a lot, probably more than anything else, but that's only one of many alternatives as you laid it out. Mm-hmm. What I want to ask you is, can you outline some of the other struggles that some African Americans grapple with in coming to trust in Jesus, especially in the West?
Well, I mean, race is huge. I mean, it's like, I don't even know if Christians really understand the effects racism has had on church attendance. And the view that the country is divided, and the marriage that Christianity seems to have, even though they know, like for the black church, is not married to government. It does work with government to help get stuff done for black people, but not in the sense of partnering with the people that seem that the African Americans in contexts like that feel like hate them, or feel like don't look out for them, and feel like they create more ways to oppress. And so yeah, I think that's a major issue in that context. I think the funding for resourcing education. One of the things that, my brother Umar Johnson found out about it later. We were talking about this for years. My brother and them I grew up in DC, and they had trade schools. They had a school named Bell. He learned how to be a mechanic in high school. Didn't go to college. Was able to take care of his family the minute he stepped out of high school. When he came back from the war. And so when they took trades out of schools, it gutted the inner city.
Yep.
Because it's really no way to really have a scholarly study of you're not even the scholarly one, just how systematic the dismantling of people in inner city, the putting them there in that same location so that you can concentrate them. Not only concentrating them in that location, but minimizing their education, minimizing their development, while in other places investing in it. I remember when we was growing up, man, we had to tape our books together, or put, some of y'all don't know what I'm talking about, brown paper bags around your books. When you go to other neighborhoods, they got new books every year, and so, and we got their used books. And so when you look at that kind of care, that affects you. I could go on and on and on concerning, whether it's pouring drugs into community, all those different things. It's a challenge, man. It's a lot of challenges there, but there are good people there though. And that's the other thing. People think everybody in the inner city is on drugs, pregnant at 13. And it's the people that pray you out of your entire house. Like they pray the enemy out of your entire family, and are godly and believe in justification by grace through faith in Jesus alone. They're just in a different economic bracket than you. And so we have to be careful of thinking because somebody's poor, they need you. So, yeah.
That's a good right there. Wow. So let me just piggyback on the school, because my wife is an assistant principal. She's been either teaching or doing something in that vein in inner city Chicago. I don't know, 10 years, 12 years. Myself, outside of the youth ministry, I was a social emotional learning mentor in an elementary school. So I deal with tier 2, tier 3 kids. And just for perspective, for some people who may, like, once again, I saw a comment. It's not that everything's about race, but I think some people don't understand how pervasive it is. It's not about KKK and stuff like that. It is about the after effects of what was implemented intentionally in this country from its foundation. So let me just say, I had a second grader, third grader, 2 girls lost 3 dads in a span of a month.
Yeah.
One killed, one in a car accident, another one, I forget what happened. But here's the point. To expect them just to go to school and focus and, just study and listen, that's expecting a lot of a 6 and 7 and 8 year old.
Right.
And these kids grow up. And so then if you don't have the back end resources from counselors and all this other stuff, then what do you expect to happen? And the amazing thing is that, like you said, that most of the time it doesn't even go where it should go. Because most of us, if we experienced some of this trauma at that age, we would be lost. But these kids amazingly persevere to high school, and they seem normal. I mean, they're able to adapt to and graduate and go to college.
Yeah,
that's more miraculous in some ways. So I would just caution people from over assuming. So with that being said, some of the misunderstanding surrounding this and other issues surrounding your books has led to us, and I'm sure you being called, a Marxist or CRT or all that other stuff. Like I said, we had to go look up what CRT was years ago when they started lobbing that out. But it's a smokescreen to me, because to me it seems like when somebody can attach that label to you, or they feel they can, well, now they don't have to converse anymore. Like they can back out the conversation because you're that other thing. So that being said, in an effort to align with minorities, do you feel like some white liberals, I'm talking about sociologically, politically, not necessarily theologically, but do you feel like some have hijacked what you mean with this term woke, and then that's causing more problems? Does that make sense?
I don't know anybody who's who the people who are speaking out against it, or they are just not like the major people who have spoken out, either use my name in a book or in a video. The major people, I'm not talking about smaller videos.
Yeah,
they were asked by people I know, did you read the book? And they said no. And so this is one point of separation. They said to them, no, I don't need to, or no, I didn't. It's kind of like, wow. And so it's funny to me that, when I was in grad school, when I was working on my degree at Dallas Seminary, and that's a 4-year master's degree. And we were reading Karl Barth, and we had the ability to have a level of engagement with neo-Orthodoxy, yet those parts of neo-Orthodoxy that was a problem, we didn't deal with those things. In Reform seminaries, I've seen them read N.T. Wright, right? New Thoughts on Paul. They engaged it. They read it. They said, man, they didn't make it the boogeyman, but they did say, oh, these things are things we don't agree with. I think that race is something about race that people just become very, very, illogical when it comes to really, like, if you ask the average person that spouts CRT and talks about CRT, and they talk about Marxism, they've never read the works of Marx, which I haven't either. But I'm not the one going around talking about Marx. You haven't read Marx, so you don't even know Marxism. Yeah. You haven't really talked to a PhD a sociologist who is a CRT expert. Never have. The other thing is, and you've never and forget about that. Like those are smoke screens. Have you read C. Eric Lincoln's book on the Black church and the African American experience? Have you read any Carter G. Woodson? Have you read any Frederick Douglass? Have you read any Francis Grimke? Like, if you haven't read and really studied, have you read Warmth of Other Suns? If you haven't read any, Kane Hope Felder, if you haven't really deeply done a deep dive into the Black experience, and that's the challenge. And it's all said in love, but whites don't have to dive into the Black experience. We have to know their world because we live in their world. But Blacks don't have to whites don't have to understand their world, our world, and so and many times what's disingenuous is speaking into a world, and they say, well, they feel like their culture is our cultural, and therefore we have to assimilate to that our culturalism. And when the reality that there's no people group and there's no place that lacks culture. Water is the only universal solvent on this planet. White culture is not a universal solvent. And so I think that we have to be careful of really, I've never seen, that's why I know it's spiritual warfare, because I've never seen people come against stuff they didn't study. I've talked to some of my OG African-American leaders, and they said they've never seen this level of anti-intellectualism since they've been a Christian. They said they've never even seen it, and they said, I've never seen it on this level. It's just like the guy talked about in the Scandal of the Evangelical Mind. He talked about 20 years ago, 30 years ago almost, the the anti-intellectualism that was creeping into evangelicalism that caused it to even critique culture in ways that were ill-informed. So it's a lot of resources out there that shows the roots, but that's the way fundamentalism works. Fundamentalism is protecting something. They're protecting something, and everybody was like, "What are you trying to protect?" And it's like, man, you have to engage, man. So yeah.
So what about the flip side for those? Let's say there's people, and like I said, this is more. I'm thinking politically and socially, the people who, go the other extreme where they want to be so pro-black. I'm talking about white people, like they want to be so pro-black because they're listening and are hearing and that the stuff you're saying, but then they go too far and it's like, I'm apologizing for being white. It's like, nah, we ain't saying that, So
well, let me say this.
That messes up our message too.
Yeah, well, it's funny. So I had, and I say this in love, and so I had and see the people who are the far left woke know who I am in this sense. Not know who I am like I'm a big deal. I'm saying they know what I believe clearly. They don't agree with me. Like, that's what's so funny. They disagree with me for being Orthodox.
Right.
Like I had a lesbian pastor DM me and said, "Yeah, I read your book, Woke Church. I love it, but I've heard you said some things about the LGBTQ community, and I just want to know where do you stand on that? Because in Manhood Restored, I talk about it very, very clearly. And in Woke Church, I let people know that I'm not promoting, like, listen, man, again, people know where I stand. It's a narrative that they want to promote. And so it's interesting. So this is where I get attacked from. I don't get really attacks from the far left woke community because they don't care about me at all. They don't care. They don't even use my book as an apologetic for anything.
Wow.
Right? So they've read it, but they don't use it for because they don't agree with it, because they say, oh, he's still like Orthodox. Like, he still believes in the Bible and justification by faith, and that marriage is between a man and a woman under Jesus Christ to save people. He still believes that the man should lead the home. They like, oh, that
he went too far.
So they're like, oh, he's not even. Oh, I thought he was really woke. Then you go to the conscious community, and they say it's impossible for a Christian to be woke. And what they mean by that is their definition of woke doesn't include transitioning gender identity. Their view of woke is aware to the way racism is in this country and willing to fight it. That's what woke means for them. Christians over here who aren't messianic, who don't do any, that would never, and I'm just saying this in love, you would never come into a neighborhood like what I minister in. You would never come there, because it would demand, if you went to my neighborhood and said racism doesn't exist to the non-Christians in my community, you may get killed. Like, you would, I'm not going to take it that far. It's going to be bad.
Yeah.
Like, because if you come around there as a white person and say there's no racism, they would view you as a racist for saying that. Mm-hmm. Like, it wouldn't even be the Christians.
Right.
And so you can't do ministry in my community when I talk about the issues we're talking about right here.
Yeah.
The black men are like this, looking. The black women are listening. I didn't know Christians talk like this, And so, but then we're talking about, our goal isn't just to talk about race all the time.
Right.
Our goal is to see you come into a saving knowledge of Jesus Christ.
Exactly.
And our desire is for him to make every area of your life whole through the gospel. And that's what we want to see happen. And so, yeah, man.
Man, that's a mouthful, and I know you could probably go even deeper. I can't even imagine what your DMs look like.
I ignore them. I ignore the madness. Yeah, I ignore it. It's not healthy.
No, it's not. And the
I've been
funny thing is,
shot myself in the head with the way people just the ungod. Like, even let me just say this, Alex. If let's just say I am left wing woke. Let's just say I'm fully away from the faith. The way I've been talked to would never be a way to draw me to Jesus.
mm,
It hasn't been in love
yeah,
at all. And so I was like, I got people I strongly disagree with, and I at least have I've been cursed at by Christians, people who call themselves Christians. They've cussed at me.
wow.
Like, cursed me out about believing that there's systemic racism while saying I'm unbiblical. So I can't say, I man, if I told you the stories of, man, we need the Lord, man.
I'm gonna keep praying for you, man. We need it. We need you. I'll tell you the funny thing. I was actually about to do a live one night. I think it was the same week the book came out, and in the same day, I was called too liberal and too conservative, and I'm like, what?
Hilarious.
But and I remember me and Zion did a live, and part of we were kind of debunking liberal notions of theology, and part of it is we're equal opportunists. Anybody can get it. It's not about we're simply about truth. And if saying something to be true knocks down a typical liberal point, then that's what we do. If it knocks down a typical conservative point, that's what we do. It's not about capping for one side or the other. It's about what is true, what's the gospel, and that's going to upset people on either side because we can't live in those boxes. Those boxes are not the gospel.
Yeah.
So yeah, I wholeheartedly agree, and hopefully we'll work it out.
Well, that's why. But for me, writing urban apologetics is ignoring. Is ignoring. It's me. It's us who wrote it, ignoring the backlash because we have a mission to do.
Gotcha.
I can't do contextual evangelism, apologetics for people who refuse to believe in what the people I'm ministering to are experiencing. And so I would, if I can't spend all of my time running around the country trying to convince people that racism exists. That's not what I'm called to do. I'm called to preach the gospel, and I'm called to deal with issues that the gospel applies to. Yeah. And so, I received my call out of Jeremiah chapter 1, verses 3 through 10. I'm called to uproot, to plant, to destroy, and to build. That's my calling. Amen. And in that calling, it's to preach the word in and out of season. And I've had a strong call into the urban context, planting 44 churches, from helping plant and coming up, with plant churches from Africa to South Central LA. And so, supporting missionaries, supporting gospel work, baptizing hundreds of people who put their confidence in Jesus. So for us, that's what we're trying to do. We want to see institutions built in these communities to rebuild the nuclear family in these communities as best as we can, to rebuild educational systems, to cause entrepreneurialism, jobs and development, career path development, and most of all, utilize all of those things as fish hooks for Jesus's gospel. That's what we call to do, man.
So I hope all the detractors just heard that soundbite right there, because, like I said, if they don't enter into the work that Epiphany has done and is doing, even reading a book doesn't give you the whole context, right? The book serves a specific purpose. But let's get back to the new book for a second.
Yeah.
And let's kind of, like you said, we're going to ignore, we covered that. But with regards to these other religious worldviews or bricks, addressing those as was the goal of the book, as you just stated, I saw you posting, I think, about the effect of the bricks specifically on African-American women. And I was wondering if you could elaborate on what you meant.
Well, yeah, that was a quote from the book.
Okay.
So that's why I said Sarita Lyons, Urban Apologetics, because somebody was mad. Yeah, so somebody was mad. And I was like, a woman said it. I didn't say it. And then but whenever, it's funny, when people call themselves saying something to you on social media, they never repent. They just leave the statement there and don't just say, hey, oh, my bad. They never say, oh, my bad. Oh, that's what you meant. Okay, I'm sorry about that. So But yeah, that was from Dr. Sarita Lines. I got to plug in something.
Okay,
Yeah,
no problem.
but yeah, she did an outstanding job dealing with that's like a lot of times when we talk about urban apologetics, we usually talking about reaching men, but women. I mean, you have women becoming Yoruba, part of the Yoruba communities, leaving the church, becoming part of Yoruba communities, Black atheism, and lesbianism, like that were never lesbians. You have, I mean, it's a lot going on in the world right now, and normalizing our sexuality. Like it's growing, dude. You know, and so I really needed a sister who can theologically speak to that.
Yeah. Well, what are, I mean, just briefly, like 2 or 3, what is the offer, or what does it seem like the offer is, especially to specifically African American women, that, okay, Black Hebrew Israelite is coming, and they're like, we can take care of you better. What's the appeal? What's the allure? What should women watch out for?
Like with Hebrew Israelism, to be honest, what they're telling women is very. We would need somebody to come out of it and talk to us about it, because I don't hear a ton of women being influenced by Hebrew Israelism. They're more influenced by Kemetic spirituality, African spirituality, and Black atheism. And one of the things that is important is this, again, it's communication and dealing with the deficiencies of where brokenness exists in people's lives. So complementarian Christians and conservative fundamentalist Christianity have beat down the value of a woman. You know, when you have people saying stuff like "Go home, Beth Moore," like when you have kind of like the 50s aesthetic, you have 50s theology, not transcendent, ancient, vintage, Christ-centered theology of women. We don't have a good biblical theology of womanhood, and we just don't. And what ends up happening is that feminism ends up scratching women where they itch in some ways that are true affirmations for females, but then poison always has food. Let me tell you something. 99% of rat poison is food. Only 1% is poison, and that 1% is enough to kill you. And so, and kill the rat and eat it from the inside out, even slowly. Wow. That's why they have to go try to drink water, because they're burning from the inside out. But yeah, man. And so we've just like in the Black community, like we have to realize in Kemeticism, in Nation of Islam, Hebrew Israelism, Black atheism, all of these different things, Nawapianism, more Science Temple, all these different things. There's truth there. When you say somebody has value, that's Genesis 1:26.
Yep.
Now, when you deify their value, that's Psalm 82. Oh, not Psalm 82, but that's Genesis 3. When you deifying their value. And see, what's interesting is Genesis 1, God already told Adam and Eve they had value. He made them inherently with value. Satan always wants to not only affirm your value, because he wants to affirm it, but he wants to elevate your value in a way where you think more highly of yourself than you are. And you'll justify, when you're oppressed, you will always justify your deification of yourself, because you think your pain is vindicated by you being better than your oppressors. And so what you have what we're doing is we're saying restoring Black dignity with the gospel. We're not trying to restore Black dignity with Blackness.
Exactly.
Like, see the difference. Like, we're saying your value didn't start at justification. It started at creation. But justification restores the value that was defaced but not erased in Genesis 3. So you can't fully even realize who you are spiritually and naturally without Jesus Christ. It's impossible. And so that's the point of the book. And so our desire is to go in and dissect each one of these bastardized attempts at dignity that these groups do. It's a godless form of dignity. It's fillers, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's fillers. You know, it's like, you know, if you're from the East Coast, you know, I'm from DC, so we crab cake people. You know, when somebody say they got a crab cake, my first question is, what did you use to bind it together?
Mm.
And if you use too much breading, to me, it ain't a crab cake. It's stuffing. Okay.
Yeah.
And so
I'm born in DC. We used to go to the wharf all the time.
Yeah. And so it's stuffed. I didn't know that. And so it's stuffed, man. So for me, I want to see a crab cake with a bunch of meat and very little filler that barely holds together, so that when I eat it, I can enjoy all of that.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of times, all the time, the conscious community does nothing but give Black people filler.
Mm-hmm.
You Black woman, you're God. Black woman, you're the woman. You're a Black man, you're the God, man. Black man, you know, Hebrew Israelites have adopted the ideology of being a deity. I got them on tape saying I'm a God in this place, you know. And so that whole idea is it's Genesis 3. It's Satan's same temptation being presented in the Black community as a filler for what God already wants to do for us.
They say you're in your bag tonight. I saw a question, and I don't know if you can answer. I don't really know this book. Somebody asked, do you have what's your agreements with Babylon to Timbuktu?
Yeah. So Babylon to Timbuktu, I read it. It's down in my basement. It's pseudo history. Actually, I'm working on a project with some historians to unearth, kind of debunk the revisionist history of Babylon to Timbuktu and a lot of the newer Hebrew Israelites that are writing now, and how they're basically getting these fake maps that are saying we came from Egypt. I mean, not came from Egypt. We came from Israel, and then in 70 AD, it's no way in the world you're going to have a map that says where everybody went.
Right.
When someone, that is the craziest thing I've ever. That's like when the Syrians were getting on boats leaving Syria. You charted their map to where they went. The people scattered everywhere. Like, right. And so it's just like, dude, how are you going to have a map that knows where they went? Yep. 2,050 years ago. It doesn't make any kind of sense that there's no written documentation of that. And so what we're beginning to do is talk about I want to develop a resource that talks about where most of us who are in America come from in Africa, what's our history and what's our lineage there. Because I think that's really, but now it's becoming spiritual. So you got people saying, well, even though you're debunking this, they're saying stuff like, well, the Lord, the Lord just told me I'm an Israelite. It's like, dude, like, okay, like,
yeah. When in doubt, just make it theoretical.
Mm-hmm.
I was speaking of maps. I charted the distance. I just wanted to see how far is it from Jerusalem to West Africa to the West Coast, which is essentially the same as going from East Coast to West Coast in this country.
Right.
And so I'm like, they walked. I know all the slaves didn't come from West Africa, but to believe, first of all, why would they? Why? Why would they leave all of Israel and all of them come and that many walk? There's no transportation, and maybe had a camel or something all the way to West Africa.
We moved from Israel to West Africa. Were there? You mean to tell me we were there for 2,000 years? No, 1,500 years.
Yeah,
living among the people with no distinct Hebrew culture.
Right.
According to who you talk to, nobody spoke Hebrew.
Right.
Nobody remembered the laws of Moses. There were groups in South Africa and different places, of course, that were evangelized by Jews, or like in Ethiopia, are descendants of Solomon, right? Mm-hmm. But then they were able, after 1,500 years, to tell us apart from the other Africans, and there was no ethnic blending for 1,500 years.
Right. And
the slave owners knew we were Hebrews. And they plucked. That's the most ridiculous. Come on, dude. Like,
that sounds like a good movie, a good fictional movie. So yeah, I mean, that's why some of the stuff I don't even really get too deep, because if you're willing to believe that, it is bordering on psychosis, to be honest with you. And I'm not a psychiatrist, so I can't really.
I asked a clinical psychologist, do you think, and I'm being really, really gracious, like, and I'm not trying to be mean, but I said, do you, when you read some of the posts by Hebrew Israelites about our identity as Hebrews, and I'm not saying that none of us aren't, we may have Hebrew DNA, some of us, my issue really is more the doctrine of justification, to be honest. But it never really ends with that for them. Even the ones that claim to justify by faith, it ends. You hear them talk more about their ethnicity than they do their, Christology. But I asked her. She said, Pastor, I know what you're saying. Were you about to ask me? She said, yes, I see severe and even mild to severe forms of psychosis with the way people who in that community talk and the way it's. She said the delusion. She said it's concerning. The challenge I had is I talked to a scholar, a historian. I said, why aren't y'all challenging the Hebrew Israelite community with this revising history that it's 1.4 million Hebrew Israelites in the country based on Lifeway research. So that are Black, that are African American. We're not even talking about the ones that are Latino, Native American, whatever. And she said, because in the scholarly community, it's just historically laughable. I said, that's true, but the challenge is it doesn't matter if it's laughable. If that many people are believing it, that means there's a need. But in that community, so we're working on it, man.
Well, more power to you. So we got somebody who knows some medical things. And actually, so we did a live last week talking with kind of debunking some of the stuff that Queen of Food.
I don't know what I'm drinking. This is a turmeric latte with monk fruit. Okay. I think I'm having a cocktail or something. I'm drinking. I'm crazy. I'm drinking a turmeric latte. Good for you.
Right. Yeah, turmeric is great for you. So yeah, the thing we did on Queen of Food last week, and she was on the Breakfast Club talking, and what we basically said is like, look, if her health drinks and all that, it can keep you healthy, make you healthy. Cool, do it. But once you over spiritualize this stuff and start talking about the third eye and the 12th gate and all that, you went too far with it, And but yeah, as you addressed, that's some of the allure for some of those people in these cities. So like I said, I've been saying for a while, man, that Orthodoxy cannot be divorced from Orthopraxy. So I want to ask you, in what ways do you see some parts of the church abdicating kind of their responsibility to be felt and not just heard? And when they are heard, it's from a distance, because as you were saying, like, you don't come in the community, like you don't come here and say that. You say it on Twitter, you say it from your location.
Absolutely.
And so from that, so even if their words are true, even if they were true, let's say they were, they're not being communicated proximate to those in certain environments. And so there's a reason in James it talks about, if somebody's in need, you don't just say be blessed and send them on their way, right? You gotta meet the need in a physical, tangible way. So what I want to ask you is, in what ways do you see, or have you seen maybe some parts of the church kind of abdicating that second half of the puzzle, the Orthopraxy puzzle?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so it's important to what in the context we're talking about. So number one, in the biblical minds, it's only Western to divorce Orthodoxy from Orthopraxy. That's Western. They don't even. That's not even biblical. Like, even when people say this is Paul's Orthodoxy section of his book, and it's it's really not true, because that means if you say the first, and I've said this too, if you say the first 3 chapters of Ephesians is Orthodoxy and the last 3 is Orthopraxy, then it's spiritual warfare section is marriage Orthopraxy. Right. Like, even though, but they would see that as a theology of marriage and a practice of marriage. They wouldn't see the separation of it, and so that's number one. Number two, let me ask you this. Let me take a poll, even in the comments.
Okay,
y'all answer this in the comments for me. If we went to Oakland, California, South Central LA, we went to the Delta in Mississippi, we went to Roxbury or Jamaica Plains section of Boston, we went to uptown side of Manhattan, Harlem. We went to the Bronx. We went to Brooklyn. We went to all the boroughs. We went to Staten Island, all of that. We went to PG County, Maryland. We went to Washington, D.C. We went to the black section of Northern Virginia. We went to all these, Atlanta. We went to Miami. And you put all of them people, did a poll from all of these people, Chicago, everywhere, Little Rock, Arkansas. You do all of it. Houston, Texas, south side of Houston, right? Third Ward, wherever you want to go. You ask all of those people, does racism exist significantly in your experience? Answer me, riddle me this. What would they all say if you did a survey on racism? I just want to see what y'all gonna say. And so I know.
I see them coming.
Matter of fact, and you don't even have to go to corporate. Every black person that works in corporate America, private and public sector, private and government, and ask them in their workplace, have they ever experienced racism?
Yeah.
Ask every African American person that's ever went to a predominantly white school for college, and ask them, have they experienced race? Like this is laughable, man. And so what I'm saying is, man, I'm gonna be honest, man. I've turned the boat of my ministry from arguing with irreconcilable evangelicals. I believe the way evangelicalism is acting is fulfill prophecy of 2 Timothy 3. I believe that it says in later time people will be irreconcilable. I believe when you say racism doesn't exist, to people who say they've experienced it and exist, and it's not systemic, you're basically being irreconcilable, because you can't reconcile with them. You're like, when people say the two sides of the coin, like they're equal. You can't say the person that disagrees that racism exists is equal in voice to the person that's saying they're experiencing racism. That's like saying, man, I got raped. Man, we just don't believe you got raped, man. We just don't believe you got raped. We think the person, the rapist who you're saying raped, that person should have an equal voice with the person that's saying they got raped. If you say that in this culture today, say that if you want to. You would never say that, because you wouldn't want to be insensitive to the fact maybe that person did get raped. And I would not want to traumatize them by not giving their story a credible listen to get the evidence needed to see whether or not they got raped. You would never do that. So, yeah.
No, that's well said. And I actually had a cool opportunity I had forgot about till you just said that. One of my friends, actually, he married my wife and I. And he went to New Zealand, and then when he went, I became a youth pastor. But anyway, he started this organization called End Zone to help underprivileged kids get into good school district environments. That's why it's called End Zone. You have to live in the zone. Yeah. But he started this thing last week, I believe, and it's this racial reconciliation dialogue. But it was really awesome. It was like 20 black people, 20 white people, Christians. We're sitting in the living room, and we're doing what we should be doing, which is talking with each other, not at each other. But what was interesting, as everybody black and white were sharing stories and just sharing thoughts and sharing perspectives, all of us learning from each other, black and white. And as they went around, like, and this was one thing I've been saying, because every black person had several stories, right?
Yeah.
Obviously, they all lived. And this is what I was trying to tell people, is that we're not just mad about George Floyd. What people don't understand sometimes, if you're not in the context, is that on a day-to-day basis, in normal times at least, I'm teaching in jail. I'm on the street with people. I'm on the street talking to kids, to homeless. I'm in, like you said, you're in the community. And so we're doing marches in our community to stop the gun violence in our community. This is not external, this is internal. But no, there's never cameras there when that happens. There's never cameras there when we're just doing the day-to-day work.
Absolutely.
So if you're not in that context, it can seem like everything was cool, and then all of a sudden George Floyd happened, and now y'all mad. No, we've been working to be preventative in our communities, and then on top of that, this happened. Right. So I think sometimes from the outside looking in, it can seem like, why are y'all so mad? This is just one time. Well, that's one time you know about.
Yeah, but we're working on we're working on right now with our police department and about to work with our commissioner on really there are 3,000 in case challenges against police in our city, and so about police brutality. So we're working with the commissioner, our local captain. We partner with our police captain in our neighborhood, and we're doing a boxing league. So we took up an offer and bought them a boxing. But now we're about to get we're working on a grant because we're trying to show how boxing has helped be a psychological stress reliever and help with the emotional stability of Black children, both Black girls and boys. And so when you're in that community, when you're in a community like with the work you're talking about you're doing, and the work that I'm talking about doing, you can't be in the community doing work that we're doing. We're in the middle of getting a school going, and a lot of different things that we're trying to get going, and that's going to happen. That's happening, and I can't afford to sit on. That's why I haven't really been on Twitter lately. I post on Instagram maybe a couple times a week, and I try to steward, social media. But man, I'm too busy trying to help folk, and us working on plans to do stuff. And so, for me, we have to actually apply the gospel with people who don't even understand the language, the culture, the challenges that a lot of people that we have first touch with deal with. And so if I can't spend, that's why, when Sanballat and Tobiah came to Nehemiah and trying to get him to come down to where he was in the valley, he said, I'm doing a great work. I don't have no time to come down to you. And I do believe we're doing a great work. So, yeah.
Amen for that. Just a couple more here and let you go. So I said, I think actually at the conference when you were there, but true peace is not based upon a lack of external aggression. It's the result of an internal manifestation.
Yeah.
And so when you were at the conference, like I said, and I might, for y'all, I might post that interview I did with Dr. Mason a couple years ago, sometime next week. But you've written and spoken about this idea of shalom. So can you explain for our audience? Because I'm a practical, I'm an application, I'm a solutions type guy. So I always want to end on like, okay, so what do we do? And so can you explain the idea of shalom? And then can you explain for our audience and give some brief insight on how we can arrive at such a place?
Yeah. So ultimate shalom will come in the eschaton when Jesus returns. However, we are supposed to be people of peace. Blessed are the peacemakers. Right. And so peacemakers is a sign of being in a relationship with Jesus Christ based on the Beatitudes, Matthew 5, right? So when we look at practical solutions, it's real simple. First, I wrote kind of every section I wrote for this book. First off, this is one of the ways in which you're trying to breach shalom, explaining talking about Black dignity. I break woke church into 4 sections, and these 4 sections is what I ask people to dig into. First, be aware, you have to be aware of what has happened and where things are. If you don't do that, you can't even deal with the issue until you're aware. And so people got to do homework, and they have to learn. When everything happened in Ferguson, I never heard of Ferguson.
Me neither.
I had never in my life. My friends from St. Louis, all of them knew about Ferguson. I didn't know the history of Ferguson. I mean, and you see that there has been a police issue there for 100 years between Blacks and whites, right? And so being aware that what happened in Ferguson, that event that happened was in the way they erupted. They didn't erupt from that event; they erupted from a history, right? If you do the history on it, right? You look at you look at stuff like Black Wall Street and what happened in Atlanta and what happened in DC, where the economic thread of Black people have been uprooted for years, you know.
Bomb.
And then you got to be willing to acknowledge. Now that you're aware, you got to acknowledge, yes, it still exists. You got to acknowledge. See, people want to go to the what do I do when they haven't spent enough time even understanding what was going on. You can't, like, that's like me going in and like, that's like me going right now. Let me go into the Aborigine people off the coast of India who are literally uncharted. There's only 200 of them left. And they let me come on because they usually kill you if you come on. And I go over there and just start saying, Jesus Christ died for your sins. Be saved. They'd be like, they don't, I don't even know their language. I don't know I don't know anything about them. And so to come in without the willingness to have the respect and love for their culture in order to understand them. If you love people, you'll understand them to minister to them. It is arrogant. It is arrogant. It's prideful and unloving. Many people, that's right, apologists in Detroit, people want solutions to soothe their conscience. They want quick solutions to soothe their conscience. But you can't minister to, many times you can't minister in deep, dark places that you haven't wept for. You can't. That's why Nehemiah wept before Nehemiah even went to Jerusalem, and he heard what was going on. He listened to the story of his brother and the guy that came from Jerusalem, and it broke his heart. Before he stepped foot in Jerusalem, he was brokenhearted for it. Many of us hear the story of Black Jerusalems all over this planet, and we don't even weep over the situation. We doubt the experience. And if you don't have that level of awareness, you can't develop a vision for where your heart isn't broken for. And so that's Nehemiah's vision was born out of the Bible and brokenness. Born out of the Bible and brokenness. And so when you go from there, awareness, and you go from there, be willing to acknowledge. So when he saw that the walls were broken down, he did all kinds, and he acknowledged his sin and dealt with all of that. Then we go from there to accountability. Now, what do we need to do? What do we need to do? What do we need to do? How do we make ourselves accountable? Because a lot of times people get aware and they acknowledge, but they're not accountable. Accountability says, now that I've been made knowledgeable of this and I've acknowledged this, am I willing to now let that turn into accountability for somebody to stay on me for my responsibility to bring shalom? I'm gonna come back to shalom in a second. Be active, and that's when we start being active. But we can do that simultaneously. So we talk about biblical shalom. When you look at eirene, which is the Greek word for peace, and then you go back to the Old Testament and you go to the passage on shalom, whether you're talking about Jeremiah 29 that talks about being exilic, and Peter picks up that exilic theme in 1 Peter. We're elect exile that's called to bring shalom where we are, right? Shalom is reordering and restitching creation back to God's design. That's what it means. That's what it means. Peace means bringing wholeness. That's why in urban ministry in urban missiology we call diaconal ministry the work of the church. When we say diaconal, they're the peace actors in culture. You see what I'm saying? And so that's very, very important. I do a whole deal on this, but yeah, man, this is very important for us to recognize and understand. And so, how do we? What does that mean for us when you're helping start a school, when you're investing in platforms to help promote the gospel and the word of God and truth and all these different things that we're talking about? You're promoting peace. When you go to understand people versus judging them, you're moving towards peace. All of those different things, man. I keep going on that all night.
No, I know you could. So look, for those, maybe if you're in the comments and you're like, okay, now that I hear him, it's making sense. The next step is get the book, check it out, read it, and then, like I said, if you give it an honest read, I think you'll see that we're more in line with where some kind of disingenuous detractors may make it seem like we're out of step, or like Dr. Mason's out of step. So yeah, let's agree to lovingly do our homework. Okay, so like I said, I've been talking a lot about orthopraxy over these last couple of years, and so I want you to maybe some people are like, okay, I hear you. Give me some tangible things. So can you just, and I know in the book in Woke Church you talk about a whole litany of things that you're doing. Can you just give, maybe if there's somebody listening that needs some examples, what are some of the things Epiphany is doing out there in Philly?
Well, first off, everybody needs to be reading history, Black history.
Yeah.
You need to read your Bible, and you need to be knowledgeable of Black history. If you can read Spurgeon, say you have your Bible in one hand and newspaper in another one, you can use that. Don't say, "Well, the Bible's enough now." Don't now see, that's the disingenuous stuff we're talking about. You need the Bible and some history. You need some Carter G. Woodson in your library. You need some of those things in your library. One of the things that when we talk about what can we practically do, it's according to where you are. Like, it's hard to say that. If a guy's in Nebraska, it's unfair to say what he should do besides self-education. And because if he's around all white folk, I don't know what kind of shalom he's going to bring to Black people, right? He or she's going to bring to Black people.
But what are some things just as far as epiphany? And I know y'all did some kind of something for young mothers, or was there like a center you helped or you started or something like that?
Well, there's several things that we did. Well, they used to be in our community. 90% of the pregnancies used to end in abortion. Used to. We partnered with a group in our city, an Alpha Care unit that has a crisis pregnancy truck that on every Monday parked in front of our building, and our medical team worked with people in our community to lower the abortion rate in our community. So that was very important. I mean, we've done that. We've done career development stuff for people. We've done SAT prep courses for students. We're now working on a way to make our church a location for educating students, because a lot of the students, about 35% or more, kids just went off the radar during COVID, and the school can't find them. And so what we're trying to do is make our church and our new building a location for the school, for us to be able to help schools have parents who, when if there's an outbreak, our school, our church, our school, our building can be a location that all of those kids come through with the highest level of internet speed out of the Ethernet cords everywhere. And they're able to have people who are not just tutors, because tutors is for a supplement to an education that people are experiencing. And so being in there and actually walking with, hey, I don't know how to do this, and walking with them and working with the city to make sure that parents who have jobs that they can't work from home. If a mom works at Walmart and then she works for a cleaning company overnight, she can't be there working with her kid, like staying at home. You know what I'm saying? Helping with that. And so we need people to help with different things like that. We need people to invest in educational initiatives like that, stuff like that we're doing to really help with our community. Park redevelopment stuff. We have to redevelop our current parks so we can have safe places and places of peace. We're building a technology center, and that technology center is teaching coding. We're building a business center. Well, we're building a business space, entrepreneurial directives to help empower people in the community, but then also for it to be common ground with lost people, so that we're teaching entrepreneurialism, but we're developing natural opportunities to build common ground for gospel communication and dialogue.
Amen. So look, anybody listening, those are some things you can do in a very practical way. That, not just in the sense of trying to have racial reconciliation, but just in practical sense of engaging within your community, so that the gospel is both heard and felt.
Yeah.
Last question, and you kind of hit on it, but basically just, Jesus prayed very, very specifically in the high priestly prayer for unity in John 17. And I know you shared some steps, but what steps can the church in a broad sense now, because there's the local church, you have your own individual context. There's some things I'm doing here in Chicago in my church context, but especially in the West. So for example, one of the things I've been doing this last year, I've been kind of teaching and training some pastors in Pakistan, virtually, of course. Spoke at this conference in India and sent, we also send money. Now look, y'all I co-pastor a house church. So it's about 20 of us, but we're still able to do work, and we're still able to give out of the abundance of what God gives us. So we support them financially, because if y'all don't know, it might be kind of rough for some African Americans here, but over there, those Christians in Pakistan, he just messaged me today of a girl, young girl about 13, 14, who was the Muslim girl shaved her head, and then they did some other stuff to her that I won't go into. There's other stuff in India going on. So let's keep in mind that God's kingdom is global. It's not only in the United States or only in the West. So as far as the Big C Church, what are some ways forward? Maybe not so much practically, but theologically, or in whatever way you think that we can kind of get towards that unity that Jesus prayed for.
The challenge is that Jesus' death on the cross unified us. I'm not praying for salvation because he already saved me. Right.
Right.
I am praying for spiritual growth, even though I'm positionally sanctified. But so a lot of people don't realize that in John, his high priestly prayer, positional unity was secured through the cross and the resurrection. That's Ephesians. The issue is, are we attaining practically to the unity in the faith? And that's we don't work for unity, we work from unity. If Jesus says he's the door to the sheepfold, then we're already in behind the door together. Gotcha. The question is, are we operating based on our position? And the problem with us is we're on the same team, we're just not acting like it.
I like that. I mean, I don't like it, but I like how you said it.
Because a lot of people say, man, we need to be unified. It's the wrong question. Yeah. That's the wrong thing. That's a works-based unity. Christ secured our unity. The gospel already secured our unity.
Yeah.
We're not aligned with our unity.
That's good.
We in other words, we're already accepted. We just don't practically accept one another. So again, we theologically, we need to add unity to the fundamental Bible doctrines. I've always said that.
Yeah.
Somebody fussed with me about that. I couldn't even believe it. I said, you don't believe that unity is a central Bible doctrine? When most of the Bible is about unity?
Well, they proved it when they said that.
I was just like, dude. I mean, and so I think that's the problem. We don't have a good doctrine of unity. We have let me tell you 3 doctrines. I'm done. 3 doctrines we need to work on. Okay. The doctrine of unity, the doctrine of Imago Dei / Imago Christi, and our doctrine of justice. Those are 3 doctrines that need to be fundamental to what people are discipled in and taught. And the reason why there's so many arguments because we have a weak cultural anthropology, biblical anthropology. Yeah, that's a whole nother discussion, though.
That is, and so we will leave it there. Amen and amen. That's the way. That's the way we're going to leave it. So, look, Dr. Mason, I so appreciate you coming on. I so appreciate the work you're doing and have done and are continuing to do, and kind of leading the charge in a lot of ways. But I genuinely hope that for anybody that maybe not, on the team of whatever, it means by woke church, I pray that you will read the book, and then you'll see that it is completely orthodox, completely theologically sound. But most of all, be gracious and weep with those who weep before you clap back. All right.
That's hilarious.
So on that note, look, I appreciate y'all in the chat. Share this with somebody that you know may need to hear this, and love and appreciate you. Same to all the mods, and until next time, peace.